Hey everyone, welcome back to Mobility IQ practice. In today's class, we're going to work on strengthening for the hips and the shoulders. You'll want 2 yoga blocks and a blanket, and we'll begin the practice lying down on our backs. And once you arrive there, take your arms to the ceiling, your palms face into each other. You're going to get our rib cage into position together. So the fingers, arms reach up, rib cage pulls down, which will solidly place your back into the mat. And then maintain that and let your arms rest by your sides. Close the horizon line of your eyes. Feel the pressure of your feet into the texture of your yoga mat underneath them. And then breathe 360 degrees all the way around your torso. So that's when you're breathing in, it's front body, side body, back body expanding. And when you're breathing out, front body, side body, and back body contracting. And so already we have a little bit of work happening to stabilize the core because the rib cage is pulled down and the feet are gently stamping into the mat. Start to stretch your breath from end to end so it's lasting. Maybe 5 or 6 seconds for your inhale, followed by 5 or 6 seconds for the exhale. And feel how you're really able to breathe into your back when you have a lot of your back muscles connected to the ground. Staying with this rhythm of breath, allow your eyes to open up. Lift your right leg to a tabletop so the shin bone is parallel to the floor and the knee is bent. Tuck your chin a little bit and bring your left hand against the inside of your right knee. So you've reached across to touch the inner knee with the heel of your hand. Squeeze your knee inward towards the palm. Push the palm outward towards the knee and breathe. So we're waking up the cross sling of muscles from the outside of the left shoulder across the abdominals to the outside of the right hip. One more breath here. Keep your leg how it is, but let your arm release by your side. And then pull your right knee towards your chest without grabbing it. Straighten your right leg so the heel reaches up to the ceiling. And then slowly lower your leg without letting it touch the ground. And then you begin those 3 movements again. Knee into chest, leg reaching up, and leg slowly lowering. So we're pedaling a bicycle with just one leg with these 3 actions: knee in, leg up, leg down. The knee in is your hip flexion and your knee flexion. The reaching up through the heel is that extension of your knee, and then the lowering down is isometric, engaging your quadricep, keeping your core strong. Not letting the leg touch. Do one more. Knee in, extend up, lower down. Now, can you bring your right knee towards your right shoulder so there's a little bit of opening out that happens? And then hold the front of the knee and give it a good squeeze, like towards your armpit. So that little bit of external rotation with that little bit of hip flexion. You might even feel your bicep working as you hug the knee in with that right arm. And release the right foot back to the floor, knee to the ceiling. Arms reach up again, palms facing in. Rib cage pulls down as the arms reach away. Keep the back solid into the floor. Let the arms go by your sides. Lift up through the left knee, left shin, so it's tabletop. Right hand comes across inside of the left knee, the push-pull, the cross sling, hand into knee, knee into hand. Strengthen that sash from your right shoulder across the abdominals to the outside of your left hip. Breathing. As you're next exhaling, release the arm and then go into single bicycle, knee towards your chest, reach heel to ceiling, hamstring stretch happens there, lower the leg slow. Several rotations or repetitions, knee in, heel up, smoothly lowering it down. So each of the movements has distinct control to it. Rather than using momentum, it's like you're moving through a tiny little bit of resistance, like you're dragging your leg through air that's very thick. Last, lowering here. And then knee towards shoulder, invite that little bit of external rotation. Take hold of the front knee, front shin, and pull your knee towards your armpit. Feel your bicep working a little. And release left foot to the floor. Take your arms to cactus. We'll continue this kind of gentle warming up. And bring your legs to tabletop, lying on your back. Open your knees out, which will bring your big toes closer together, and then pull the knees towards the elbows. So think of this as like the legs are doing what child's pose is, only we're on our back instead of laying on the legs, right? And then start to let your right leg get really heavy and go to the right side. Let your left leg also be pulled over to the right. Your thighs, they'll meet each other. And then as soon as they meet, lift the left leg away from the right leg. Start to come back to center. Start to allow your left leg to become very heavy and be pulled to the left. Once the thighs meet, right leg lifts away from left, and it's that same exploration of right leg becoming heavier and heavier and heavier, drawing us over to the right with the lower body. Then lifting up, left leg off of the right leg. Your big toes might still be kissed together as you take this all the way over to the left. And once your left leg lands and your right leg is pulled on top of the left leg, stay there. Turn your right ear to the floor. Breathe a few deep breaths into your circumference here in this twist. Bring your head to center. Start to lift off, right leg off of left. It starts to pull you over. Right leg gets heavier. Right hip gets heavier. Lower body starts to rotate to the right. The legs connect. They land. Turn your head to the left. Other side twisting, breathing. Bringing head to center, lower body around to center. So your back is once again resting on the floor. Land the feet, reach your right arm a little longer by your ear, and then roll to your side. From there, press into the ground and rise up, coming to that same leg position, only now we're weight bearing on it. So the knees are wide, the big toes come together, and your hips sit back towards your heels. Now, if your knees are like, you can always take a blanket, situate it onto your calves, and then sit down on that blanket so it doesn't ask your knees to close as tightly. Walk your arms forward so you're in a little bit of a reaching pattern. And move through some cow-cat with your arms extended out and away from you. So the inhale takes you into the back bend, which is that feeling of arching. And your exhale takes you into the rounding where you push your hands forward and away as you bring your chin down and under. So this movement is happening in the 3 parts of the spine that are just above that sacrum. So we're working with just cat-cowing in the lumbar portion, the thoracic portion, and then the neck spine, which is the cervical portion. We're trying to leave the sacrum or the back side of the pelvis alone and just articulate what's above that. Follow your breath through just a couple more here. You'll notice maybe your mobility is already growing. You're able to back bend more deeply and able to round more completely. And find your way to more relaxed or neutral, and then come up to hands and knees. If you were using a blanket, slide it off to the side and then create tabletop. In tabletop, take your right foot, step it forward, and then sit your butt back towards your left heel. You may want to sit your butt onto a block back there inside of the left heel. And then the work is to pull your right heel in so your knee is closed, the shin bone's up on this diagonal towards whatever that wall is in front of you, and you have a lot of wrinkles in the front of your ankle. So this is dorsiflexion for your ankle. Wrap your arms around that standing leg, the one that's standing up to the ceiling, and then keep your heel driving into the floor, but lean your shin way forward until you can feel like deeper flexion at your ankle. Keep pushing your heel towards the ground. Keep letting your shin and knee go forward. And then you might decide to try to lift your toes off the ground, which activates some more muscles in the front of your shin bone. And we're going to hold this, and when we hold something, it's like isometric, right? You're just holding the muscles in that shortened position. Keep working with heel down. Keep working with shin sliding forward. Keep working with toes being held up, floating away from the floor. And maybe your toes aren't up, but they want to be, right? There's that desire to lift them. One last breath in this ankle dorsiflexion. Hold, then relax the toes and lean back to release that pressure. Switch your legs, so you might tuck your right foot underneath you. If you're sitting on a block, left foot forward, or you sit back on your right heel and have the left foot forward. Slide the heel in really close to your sitting bone. Wrap your arms around it. You're giving a hug. And then you're going forward till your heel wants to come up, but you're not letting it. So get that activation first. Shin and knee forward, heel driving down. Feel a deepening of the crease at the front of your ankle. And then toes up, float them. Keep breathing, and you might find, oh, well, I can actually get a little farther forward with that shin if I just stay and hold this longer. So you make space, and then you climb right into that space. Did your heel lighten? Keep it pressing down. Did your toes get heavy? Keep them floating up. Did your shin pull back? Keep it leaning forward. One more breath with this deep ankle flexion. And then release the toes and come back, pressure off of the heel. Now find your way to seated. I'm going to use a yoga block to sit on, but you might choose to sit on your own heels or to sit on your blanket. Let's go from ankles to shoulders. Take your arms into vertical reach. And notice when you reach up vertically, are your ribs popping forward and wide apart? Front ribs come together and back. So you're staying strong through your trunk in this one. And then take your arms to cactus. So your upper arm bones will be parallel to the floor. Start to do internal rotation of one while you do external rotation of the other, and then switch that effort. So there's an alternating happening. One palm is turning forward and down, and one palm is turning forward and up. But really that movement is coming from the shoulders. One shoulder is rolling in, one shoulder is opening up and back. Now, as you're doing this more, your arms might start to get tired, but see if you can keep your upper arm bones more parallel to the ground. And coming back to both of them in cactus, get into a vertical reach, check in with the rib cage. Let's move into some swimmers. We've done this plenty of times, but if you're new to it, you go from vertical to a V. And then once you're in a V, you bend your elbows, maybe touch your index and middle fingers together back there without grabbing your head, and pull your elbows wide apart. Can you keep your arm bones back without letting the ribs buckle forward and go back to the V? So it's a straightening of the elbows. Now go out to a T. Then you do a double internal rotation. That's wrists pointing back. Then you lower the arms. So it's like a V turned upside down, like a teepee. And then take your arms back, push back, like you could plug your hands into whatever's back there behind you. Bend your elbows, touch your index fingers and your thumb fingers together without letting your hands rest on your butt. Pause there. Did you start to lean forward? Did your head start to go forward? Keep the length of your spine. Keep the length of your neck. Reverse your way out. Straighten the elbows. Bring the arms a little forward. Then raise up to T. Then flip the palms to face forward. Then go up to a V. Then bend, index and middles touch behind you. Elbows go wide. And from there, reach straight up. Release the arms out and down. Roll your shoulders a little. We're going to do another rep of that. So from shoulders moved back, ribs pulled back and in, arms go into vertical. From vertical to a V. From V to connecting index and middles behind your head. Armpits wide. Back to V. Keep your armpits wide. Go out to a T. Rotation inward, palms flip back. Get lower. Push back, extension. So extension's when the arms go into the back plane of the body. Bend elbows, thumbs and index touch. Be mindful of what's happening with your upper back and your neck. Pause there. Straighten. We brought them back, so let's bring them forward. So we reverse our way out. Up to T. Palms flip. Up to V. Index and middles touch, armpits wide. Vertical up, and arms releasing out and down. Loosen by rolling a little bit. So you can feel, oh my gosh, the muscles around my shoulder blades get really fiery. So now we're going to do some work for the shoulder blades. If you only have one block and you're sitting on it, come on off of it. If you have an extra, grab it, right? And we're going to work with the scapula. So I'm going to actually switch my blocks because I like this higher one for this work. Take your arms in front of you. Hold the block the wide way in between your arms. Notice when you reach your arms, are you shrugged up? Are you depressed down? Are you hunched? Are you rounded? Find neutral. Neutral is like, well, my shoulder blades aren't really doing anything. They're just sitting back there. Start with neutral. From neutral, go to shrugging. So how high can you lift your shoulders by your ears? From shrugging, go into retraction, which is how much can you squeeze your shoulder blades together behind your back? From retraction into depression, which is how low can I slide my shoulder blades down, pulling them away from my ears. And then protraction is how far forward can I reach my arms, getting my shoulder blades to spread apart on my back body. Then we start again. Up is the first movement. Back is the second movement. Down is the third. And forward or away is the fourth. Do a couple more on your own. It's like a square. Almost like you're tracing a square. Okay, next time you go into retraction and depression, which is shoulder blades pulled back and down, keep them that way and work with elbow bending. Arms go to 90, block might even touch the forehead, and then arms straighten. So biceps are what bend elbows. Triceps are what straighten arms. Can you keep your hands pressing into your block as you work these two actions of bending and straightening? Simple enough, right? But holy moly, the fire. Okay, we're going to make it a little more challenging. Raise your arms up on a little diagonal. Same thing, bending and straightening. Now we have a different orientation of those shoulder blades, right? They're in a little bit of upward position. So you'll feel different muscles having to work here. One more, doesn't take much. Okay, now straighten. Now raise your arms vertical and bend the block behind you. Straighten the arms all the way. So this is like overhead tricep extension, but you're working to stabilize your scapula. Keep your elbows from winging out. It's like you have a block between your elbows as well. Oh, one more. And straighten and bring the block all the way down. I wish I could say we were done with the shoulder and arm strengthening, but we have a couple more things to do. So can you set up for me a tabletop position, hands and knees? And then once you have your tabletop position, what's it like to find protraction? So if retraction is squeezing your shoulder blades together, protraction is the other thing, pulling your shoulder blades away. Feel like your chest is pulling up away from your thumbs. So it's like you're pushing the ground out of the way. Now from here, build a plank pose. Right leg goes back and left leg goes back. Can you keep your upper body doing this work of plank and let your knees touch the floor? So when your knees touch the floor, you'll notice I'm not in tabletop, with my knees under my hips. But if I go to plank and then I drop my knees are a little behind my hips. So we're keeping the upper body loaded. Take your toes, tuck them under. Take a deep breath in. Curl your tailbone towards your pubic bone, so you're lengthening your buttocks. Exhale, lower to the floor. Inhale, come back up, straighten your arms, push the ground solidly out of the way. Exhale, your hips, they sit back to your heels like a nice little reprieve in a child's pose type shape. When you inhale, can you come forward, not to tabletop, but shoulders a little beyond wrists? If you need a visual, look towards the screen. Exhale, lower down. We're loading the triceps. Inhale, push the floor out of the way, straighten the arms. Exhale, the hips go back into that little child's pose reprieve. Let's do a couple more. Inhale, come forward. Your hips are slightly hanging, but your belly is very strong. Exhale, lower, control. Inhale, palms press ground away, arms straighten. Exhale, hips, they go back. 2 more. I like to move with the breath. Inhale, pitching forward. Exhale, lowering with control. Inhale, straightening the arms, fill the lungs. Exhale, hips back. Last round. Forward on the inhale. Down on the exhale. Inhale to press the ground out of the way. Exhale to stretch the hips back to the heels. Untuck your toes, sink back. Bring your arms by your sides. You can turn one of your cheeks to the ground. So let's release weight from shoulders and arms. And come to a seat. I want to show you how I'd like to set up the next move. So I'm going to use 2 blocks for this, but you could potentially use a blanket and a block. What I'll be doing is setting up a little bit of a ramp. So I have 1 block that's high off to the side of my mat, the right-hand side of my mat, and then I have 1 block that's medium, right? So one's turned up on its side and one is standing tall. If you don't have 2 blocks, you could use your blanket as the lower one and the block standing on its side as the higher one. The position for starting is belly down, cactus arm, where my elbow is on the low block or the blanket, but my hand is on the high block, okay? So essentially you're creating a little ramp for that arm. And just so you can tell, the ramp would be hand is higher than the elbow when you set this up. Come onto your belly, and then we got to figure out, well, what the heck are we going to do with our head? So if you lay your left elbow across or forearm across perpendicular to your mat, you can rest your forehead down on the back of your hand like a little pancake, right? So you're going to look something like this if I were underneath you looking up, okay? And it's important that you make your legs long and strong and press your hips into the floor. So we want to stay strong through the lower body. I'm going to keep my head up from my hand just so you'll be able to hear me better. This is called passive angles and then regressive angles. So the first thing we're going to do is press the hand, the heel of the hand, into the high block. Press the elbow into the low block. So there's a downward push happening in that arm. And the arm is cactus, but up on a ramp. Take a few breaths with the downward push. And then see about pulling the hand away from the block, pressing the elbow into the low block, floating the hand away from the high block. So what we were working is pressing down into internal rotation, and now we're lifting up into external rotation. Take a couple of breaths, hovering your right hand up away from your high block. Okay, go back. Press the hand down into the high block. Keep rooting your inner elbow into the low block. So there's a down push, down pressure, down action. Internal rotation strengthening. Let's reverse it. Float the arm up. Not the elbow, not the arm that's resting on low block, but the hand that's resting on high block. How much can you externally rotate that shoulder? How high can you float that palm on that diagonal? Breathe. Are your legs still strong? Is your hip still pressing into the mat? Create that. And let the hand come to rest. Relax that entire arm. Release that entire arm from that contraption. Move that contraption over to the left. We're going the other way. High block, low block, or your blanket is serving as your low block, but you do have a high block. It's prone position, belly down, legs long. Rest your head on that perpendicular right arm. Ramp up on that left block under the left arm. And start with your downs. That's all we're looking for, is trying to drive the hand into the high block without letting that inner left elbow lift from the low block or the blanket. Create your internal rotation. And so 3 to 5 breaths, depending on how slowly you're breathing with this downward push. Now, can you keep the inner left elbow absolutely grounded, but float the forearm and float the palm up away from the high block, breathing there. Almost as if you're pressing the back of the wrist, the back of the palm up to the ceiling above you. Now let's reverse. Again, the downward pressure. The action of internally, or trying to internally, rotate the left shoulder. Push down. Breathe. Did you let go of strong legs, hips pressing into the floor? Bring that back. Last breath with the downward. And then hover, lift off. How high? Hold it up there. Keep working. Back of the hand, back of the wrist, back of the forearm, lifting up towards the sky. External rotation. Keep the inner left elbow pressing. One more breath. Oh. And let it go. Come on off of that left-hand side contraption. And push back maybe to a child's pose or a hands and knees. Sometimes laying on the belly makes the lower back a little cranky. So stretch out through lower back. From this stretching back, go to forward and down onto the belly. Again, we're not going to stay there. We're going to the side of our body. So roll over onto your side. Now we're getting into, I told you it was shoulder work, leg work. Now we're getting into leg work. Prop head in hand, or you can do head resting against your bicep. And then bring your legs in front of you. So you have bends in your knees. There's a 90-degree angle happening through the legs. And that free hand is in front of your chest, supporting you. And then bring that right knee towards your chest. Pull your heel towards your butt. So you're closing the knee joint, much like we were doing when we were doing that ankle work in the very beginning. And then you're drawing with your knee like a giant circle. I want you to consider, I think everyone in this class has been in this class before. So consider that you are moving in flexion, external rotation, internal rotation and extension, back to flexion. So even though we're smoothing out this hip car or controlled articular rotation and making it more of a circle, you're still finding your 4 directions in there. And we're circling back, but what would happen if we reversed it? We kicked back into hip extension, then circled around forward and up towards the elbow. So you're moving to the back plane of the body, into the side plane, into the front plane. So you can feel your top leg working considerably. As you next bring that leg forward and around, let it reset. And then go to both legs straight. So we're more of like a pin. Then legs forward, so it's easy to balance your right hip directly over your left hip. Flex the top foot and turn your toes in and down. So you're doing internal rotation of that leg. So the foot orients where the toes pivot in and down. Now drag your heel up, up, up. Once you're up there and you can feel that strength happening in your glute here on the right side, can you turn your toes up, your heel down, and then pull down? Use your inner thigh strength to do that. Once you hit the bottom, you're not letting the top leg rest on the bottom leg. You're just hovering. Go into that internal. Toes down, heel up. Drag up. External. Whoosh. Pull down. So just keep doing that. Internal up. External down. We're going to stay at this for a little bit more, maybe 4 or 5 more times. Strengthening the internal hip rotators and going into this abduction, the leg lifting, strengthening the external hip rotators and coming into adduction. We can make this the last one. Internal drag up, external drag down. Just relax the leg. Go to the belly before you take the other side and bring it to chin resting on the back of the hands. Bend your knees, do a little windshield wipering. Releasing that right hip, right leg. And then flipping to the other side, you could orient to the other direction on your yoga mat, or you could turn your back to the screen. Setting up head in hand or head on bicep, 90-degree angle of the legs, they're stacked. The top hand is in front of you for support. Heel to butt, so hamstring working, close the knee joint as best you can, and then your circles. And recall, you are trying to get all of the articulations in there. Knee to elbow, direction, flexion, open out to the side, external, swirl into internal, reach the leg behind you into extension. So we usually do this like kind of slow and robotic. We're just smoothing out the line here. As you next kick back into extension, which is leg behind, can you reverse? Get farther back into extension, then circle up into external, bring it to the front plane and start over. Behind you, to the side, and then in front. Last one, big, broad circle around, forward, and then down. Legs long, pin straight, kick forward a little, balance the hips, keep the hand in front, hover the top leg, flex the foot, turn the toes in and down. That turning is coming from your hip, pivoting in and down. Drag up. When you're at your little pinnacle up there, heel down, toes up, pull down. Think outer hip as you turn in, reaching. So there's the strength pattern back there. Then turn toes up, inner thigh squeezes down. Drag up, drag down. Internal rotation is up, external rotation is down. And 2 more times. Moving through resistance, not with momentum. So there's no swinging, it's all dragging. And releasing onto belly, rest chin on back of hands, elbows wide, windshield wipe, side to side. From here, stretch your legs long, bring your hands along your breastbone, push up to a table position, hands and knees. Hands and knees, right foot steps forward and through between your hands, so you're in a lunge position. Move your back knee back so you're not so much on your back kneecap as you are above the quadricep, below the quadricep. You can also stick your blanket underneath there. Untuck the toes, both hands, right thigh. And then start to circle your knee, drop it forward, pull it back. So you're going around. It's kind of like the circle is horizontal to the floor. And you can start clockwise or counterclockwise. It doesn't matter because we're going to go both ways. Feel the weight shifting around in the foot. And the ankles are nice and open from all of that dorsiflexion work that we did. Reverse, go the other way. Then come to center, so knee and second toe in alignment. Touch down with fingertips, or you can take your hands onto 2 yoga blocks underneath the hands. Pull it back, a little hamstring opener. Chest reaches forward, butt sticks back. Lengthen out through the back of that right thigh. And then bend right knee. Hands to ground, right knee under right hip. Switch it out for your left foot stepping forward. Scoot your right knee back. Both hands left thigh. Use that support to then kind of swirl the knee, pulling hips forward and back as you're doing this. Lunging and rotating. And then reverse, go your opposite direction. One more time, all the way around. And leaning over to touch ground or to use your blocks as stations for your hands. Pull your hips back, straighten through the left leg. Can you reach chest forward as you stick your butt out? So it might feel a little like cow in the spine, a bit of an arch to work into that left hamstring. Bend your left knee, plant your palms, step your left knee under your left hip. And then we're going to take a yoga pose, downward dog. So walk your hands forward, tuck your toes under, and raise your hips up and back into downward dog. Take a few breaths, bending one knee, press the other heel deeply to the floor. What I want you to focus on is as your heel presses to the ground, you can visually see the wrinkles at the front of the ankle. So you can see the dorsiflexion of that ankle happening as you pedal. Both heels releasing towards the ground. Take a breath in. Use your exhale to walk your feet forward towards your hands. Once you get there, hang in ragdoll. So the knees, they do bend. The hips, they are deeply creased. Hold the elbows. Kind of like your upper body becomes water and it's pouring out and over the lower body. Swaying feels nice. Side to side is welcome. And finding center, hands to hips, keep your knees bent, chest forward and spine up to standing. We rarely do standing in this class, but we're going to work with it today. So blanket necessary, blanket or towel necessary for what's next. And my blanket's a rectangle. I'm going to roll it into a tight little kind of sushi roll. And so if you're using a bath towel, you can, doesn't have to be this wide. You only need to have it like hips width, right? So sometimes bath towels are narrower than a yoga blanket, and that's okay. And you place that roll up at the top of your yoga mat, not at the very top edge, but just about a foot back. And then grab one of your yoga blocks, come to standing, so that your heels are up on your blanket, your toes are down on the floor. So your feet are on a bit of a ramp where the heels are higher than your toes. And I like feet a little narrower than shoulders distance for this work. Now this block, what are we going to do with it? We're going to put it between our thighs. And this is, if you were in class yesterday, you might have explored this, elevator squatting. Elevator squatting, vertically down, vertically up, hands together in prayer. And then start to send your knees forward beyond your toes. This is why we did all that dorsiflexion for the ankles. And let your hips go down, down, down. How low they go is up to you. But you're staying tall through your back. So you're not leaning forward, you're not leaning back. You might even come down until you've sat more towards your blanket, towards your heels. And then keep squeezing your yoga block and you're going to ride the elevator up to the top floor. Keep your spine vertical until you come up to straight legs. Very quad dominant movement. You'll be tempted to lean forward and just do it with your hips, but no, 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 no. Stay tall. Knees forward. Whole trunk goes down, straight down into the basement. The knees have gone way beyond the toes, right? Dorsiflexion. And then we come up from the basement to the top floor without leaning forward. Keep squeezing your yoga block. Okay. Couple more. So I recognize that sometimes knees are like, heck no. You could go down, you could go from floor 10 to floor 6 and then back up to floor 10. You don't have to go to the mailroom down there. You can be traveling between just a few floors. And you will find some work in there. One last time. Go down to the floor that you're deciding to go down to. And then let's all go up to the 10th, shall we? Up, up, and up. Take the block out from your inner thighs. Put it off to the side. Take your heels off of your blanket and place that off to the side. A little bit more strengthening, and then I promise we'll stretch it out. Feet at hips distance. I had you bring your knees forward into quad dominant version of like a squatting. Now we're going to go hips back, hips hinged. So it becomes like more hip and glute dominant. Hands together in prayer. And what we're doing is tapping out, in, back, and forward. Out, in, back, and forward. The whole time you're keeping your left leg loaded, and you're moving the right one away and in, back and forward. So that work we were doing with dragging, we're getting a little bit more of that work here. Except it's happening in the stationary leg, the standing leg. Outer hip strength. Do a couple more out to the side, back and forward. Come to feet parallel, straighten your legs. Oh. So we have another side to do. I'm just warning you, the second side is like, it sucks. Because this leg's already tired. But let's get it done, shall we? Bend your knees, hips back. There's a little hinge. Hands together in prayer, gesture of centeredness, stability. Out to the side, back in, behind you, and back to where it was. Whole time, that standing leg stays hinged, the knee stays bent, the hip stays squeezing in. Three more. Last one. Land the foot, straighten your legs. If you're not at the front of your mat, make your way there. Release your arms. And then with a breath in, sweep your arms in like an out and up. So there's that lift and that opening. As you exhale, hinge from your hips and fold. And inhale, take it to half lift, so spine reaches away from your sit bones. As you exhale, downward dog, bend your knees enough to get your hands to the floor and step your legs back. Take a big stretch back in your downward facing. Bring it forward to plank. Let your knees tap the floor and then go forward and down onto the belly. Roll onto right side body. Stack your legs. Pick up your top leg, bend the knee, grab the ankle, heel to butt, and leg reaching behind you, thigh stretch. So we're pinned straight. If you'd like to take your bottom leg forward to find a better balance, you're welcome to kick your bottom leg a little out in front of you. With your heel pulled to your butt and your quad long, can you like lift and lower the leg a few times so you can figure out, oh, how do I get into that quad stretch the best? So just exploring that. If you kicked your top leg or your bottom leg forward, go back to pin straight, restack, flip to belly, orient to the other side, coming into the second side of thigh stretch. Top leg up, bend knee, heel to butt, thigh bone reaches back. Check in with the balance. Maybe the bottom leg has to go forward. Then explore up and down. Lowering the top thigh, come back to pin straight, stack the legs, and then right onto your back. Knees bent, soles of the feet on the floor. Reach your arms up, palms face in, pull your rib cage away from the reach of your fingers. Let your arms rest by your sides. Cross right ankle, left thigh. Eye of the needle, pick up your left foot, reach through and around the back of the leg or the front of your left shin. So it's like pigeon with the right leg. Right knee presses away, but the legs, they pull in towards you. Deep hip stretch. You could start to go side to side here, kind of like we do in Happy Baby, that gentle rock. I find if I roll a little to the left, it changes the sensation in the outer right hip pretty significantly. You might try that out too. If you did roll a little to the left, come back to center so the majority of your back is on the ground. And then release that interlace. Uncross your left ankle as you land, or your right ankle as you land your left. Switch left over right. Pick up right foot to the back of the thigh or the front of the shin. Left knee away, both legs in. Maybe a little lean to the right or a rocking side to side motion. And finding your way back to center if you did roll. Uninterlace your hands from your leg. Uncross your left ankle. Heels walked in close to sitting bones, feet at hips distance, arms by the sides. Take a moment to really stretch your breath here. Inhales lasting for 5 or 6 seconds long. Exhales evenly matched to the inhalations. And as you next exhale, let it all go. And then some somatic bridging. Inhale, arms up, hips up. Lifting, lifting. Exhale, lowering, lowering. So your breath is like helium. The inhale floats you up. And the exhale, like the gravitational pull of the exhale all the way back down. And the hips are up. You can feel the length in the front of your body. And as your hips settle to the ground, the heaviness in the back of the body. One more time. Coming all the way down. Slide the arms to cactus. Let's come back to a familiar shape from the very beginning of class. Let your feet lift, knees towards the armpits, big toes together. So it's like child's pose legs, only we're on our back instead of on our front. And then that little bit of leg chasing where the right leg gets heavy and it pulls your outer right hip and thigh to the ground. And then the left leg is drawn into the inner right thigh. Now an opening away of the left leg, that lift off. Now the left leg becomes the weighty one. It pulls you and that right leg all the way across to the left. If your shoulders lift as you go side to side, who cares? Right? Let your body feel like just watery and free. And then we're going to begin to let ourselves roll, so much so that we actually go all the way into the fetal position. So you're going to be letting that right shoulder lift as you roll to the left. Your head will rest on your arm, and then there's an opening of the right arm out back. Right leg lifts away from the left as you roll, roll, roll. Fetal. Stacking your entire right side under your left side. So our range of motion, our ROM, gets bigger in this exploration. From fetal pose to openness, back to fetal. Yeah. I can connect to the feeling of all the fascial lines just opening up as we do this side to side. And as you next roll, you can bring yourself all the way onto your back. And extend your legs long. And let your arms slide into their resting position. Invite eyes to close. Allowing awareness to come back to the experience of breathing. What does that feel like? And then experience of head rolling back and forth, side to side a few times. And permission to reach through arms and legs in any way that makes sense this morning. Bending knees one and then the other. Rolling over onto your side. And from there, pressing into the ground and lifting all the way up to seated. Closing eyes, joining hands, gesture of gratitude and offering. And grateful for the resilience of our bodies and our minds and our hearts. Thanks so much for showing up today.